There's a voice that lives inside every trader's mind. It speaks softly, but it speaks often. It says, I knew it. After every loss, after every missed move, it whispers those three words. And for a moment, you feel safe again. But that safety is an illusion. It's a trick of the mind, a defense against uncertainty, a way to rewrite pain into logic. We call it hindsight bias, the belief that we understood what happened all along. But we didn't. We only understand now, and that understanding is painted by the memory of loss. This is not a story about charts or strategies or indicators. It's a story about the human mind, the stories it tells to survive and the truths we must face to grow. So today we step into that space between perception and reality, between knowledge and illusion, to uncover the quiet bias that shapes how we review, how we learn, and how we trade. Welcome to Mind Over Markets. And this is Hindsight Bias, I Knew It, the review trap. They say clarity comes after the storm, but in trading, clarity often arrives too late, like a whisper after the market has already spoken. You stare at the chart, the candle, the line you ignored, and a quiet voice inside says, I knew it. But did you? Or is that just the mind trying to make peace with chaos? The truth is uncomfortable. Most traders don't lose because they can't predict the market. They lose because they rewrite the past. They turn uncertainty into memory and memory into fiction. The story changes after the result. The narrative bends to protect the ego. And what was once a decision made in fog becomes a prophecy fulfilled in hindsight. That's hindsight bias. The invisible hand that edits your journal even before you write it. The illusion that you saw it all coming, that you were right all along. But you weren't. You were human, uncertain, emotional. And that's okay. Yet instead of learning, the mind rewinds. It looks back not to understand, but to justify. Not to grow, but to feel safe. When you tell yourself, I knew it, what you're really saying is, I can't accept that I didn't know. You're protecting the fragile belief that you were in control, that you could have done better, that you should have done better. But trading doesn't care about what you should have done. The market doesn't remember. Only you do, and your memory lies. It edits the fear out of your entry. It polishes the hesitation, erases the doubt, and paints your past in colors of false certainty. You think you learned something, but what you really learned is how to feel right. Every trader believes they're improving, but few realize they're just reinforcing the same illusion, the illusion of foresight, the dangerous comfort of I knew it. Because if you knew it, then you don't have to change. You don't have to admit you were blind. You don't have to face your own ignorance. And that's where growth stops. There's a difference between reviewing and reliving. Reviewing means seeing your decision as it was incomplete, uncertain, honest. Reliving means rewriting it as you wish it had been. Most traders relive their trades. They turn reflection into storytelling. They write journals that sound wise but teach nothing. The purpose of a trading journal is not to prove you were right. It's to expose where you were wrong, not to document your victories, but to illuminate your blindness. Yet most traders open their journals like judges, not students. They look for validation, not truth. And hindsight gives them exactly what they want, the sweet lie of understanding. You can't learn from a lie. You can only repeat it. And so trade after trade, day after day, the cycle continues. You win and you lose, but your mind always wins the argument. It always finds a reason, a justification, a story that makes sense after the fact. And sense after the fact is not wisdom. It's illusion. Trading is not about knowing. It's about staying open to not knowing. It's about seeing uncertainty not as a flaw, but as the very nature of the game. The trader who accepts uncertainty is free. The trader who denies it is trapped in hindsight, trapped in memory, trapped in a loop of imagined control. If you want to grow, start by admitting this simple truth. You don't know. You never did. And that's not weakness. That's the beginning of awareness. The human mind is a master of protection. It shields us not with walls of stone, but with stories. When pain arrives, when loss, regret, or failure cuts too deep, the mind bends reality just enough to make it bearable. That's why traders cling to hindsight. It's not arrogance, it's survival. It's the brain's way of saying you're still in control, even when control was never truly there. Every trader has been there. You watch a candle reverse right after you close your position. You feel the sting not of money lost, but of being wrong. And almost instantly the story begins, I saw that coming. I knew it would bounce there. It's not truth speaking, it's ego trying to heal. Because being wrong in the market feels like being wrong about yourself. In the markets, our identity and our trades intertwine. When a trade fails, it's not just a bad decision, it feels like we failed. And so the mind steps in to rewrite the script, to soften the blow, to protect the fragile sense of certainty that keeps us moving forward. But every time we let the mind protect us, we lose something deeper. We lose clarity. We lose the raw honesty that fuels growth. We lose the ability to see the market and ourselves as they truly are. The market is not your enemy. It's your mirror. It reflects your beliefs, your fears, your discipline, your delusions. It shows you not what you know, but who you are. And hindsight bias fogs that mirror. It hides the blemishes you need to see. When you say, I knew it, what you're really doing is stepping away from truth. You are closing the door on awareness. You are saying, I am done learning from this moment. And that's tragic, because every trade, win or lose, contains the seed of wisdom if only you can face it without rewriting it. The mind craves patterns. It hates randomness. It wants cause and effect, reason and order. But the market doesn't care. It moves through chaos, not logic. It's not something to be solved. It's something to be witnessed. The moment you think you figured it out, it shifts again. So the mind, desperate for safety, creates patterns that aren't real. It connects dots that were never there. It says, see, the signal was obvious, but it wasn't. You made it obvious after the result. You painted the target around the arrow you already shot. That's hindsight. It's comfortable, elegant, seductive, and deadly to growth because it steals your curiosity. It convinces you there's nothing left to explore, that you already understand. And once you stop questioning, the market stops teaching. Growth in trading isn't about predicting the future. It's about dissecting your perception of the past. It's about catching the lies your mind tells you, the soft, well-meaning lies that protect your ego and destroy your progress. The trader's journey isn't a battle against the market. It's a dialogue with yourself, a negotiation between awareness and illusion, between truth and comfort. So when you review your journal, don't ask, what did I know? Ask, what did I believe? What emotion shaped that belief? What fear or hope made me see what I wanted to see? Because the journal is not a history book, it's a mirror of consciousness. Every sentence you write is a reflection of how aware you were in that moment. And the more honest that reflection, the faster you evolve. The mind that protects itself will always be safe, but stagnant. The mind that exposes itself will always be vulnerable, but free. Trading psychology isn't about eliminating emotion. It's about seeing emotion clearly without judgment, without denial. That's what makes review powerful. That's what transforms journaling from documentation into insight. If you can look at your losing trade and say, I didn't know, I was guessing. I felt fear. I acted anyway, then you're not weak, you're aware. And awareness is the first step toward mastery. The trading journal is often misunderstood. Most traders see it as a record of wins and losses, a diary of results, a logbook of performance. But the journal was never meant to be a scoreboard. It's a mirror one that reflects the invisible patterns inside your mind. Every entry tells a story, but not about the market. It tells a story about you, about how you felt, what you feared, what you believed was true in that fleeting second of uncertainty. When you open your journal, you're not studying the market. You're studying your own consciousness, your reactions, your assumptions, your blind spots. And yet most traders use the journal to reinforce ego. They write to prove they were right, to show that their ideas were valid, their logic sound. But a true journaler writes to reveal what they didn't see. They write to uncover the subtle forces that pull their strings from within. Your journal is where the real market happens, the market of emotions, bias, and belief. The chart shows price movement. The journal shows self-movement. And unless you can see that internal movement clearly, you'll forever confuse randomness for reason, emotion, for intuition, and hindsight for wisdom. A journal is sacred because it's honest, or at least it should be. But honesty is rare in trading because honesty hurts. To admit I entered too early because I was afraid to miss out is to face the uncomfortable truth that fear drives action. To write I moved my stop because I couldn't stand being wrong is to admit that pride cost you money. But that's exactly the kind of truth that transforms a trader. Most traders review charts. Few review themselves. But the difference between a losing trader and a consistent one isn't strategy, it's awareness. The strategy is the tool. The mind is the craftsman. And the craftsman can only improve through reflection. A trader without a journal is like a traveler with no map. They walk in circles, convinced they're exploring new ground, when in truth, they're retracing the same emotional patterns again and again. Fear, greed, hope, revenge, the same loops disguised by different market conditions. You can only break those loops by seeing them. And you can only see them when you document them raw, unfiltered, before the mind edits the story. That's why journaling after the fact often fails, because by then you already know the outcome. The bias has already begun its work. It colors your words, softens your mistakes, and rewrites your motives. To truly see yourself, you must write in the moment, before you know whether you'll be right or wrong. That's where the truth lives, in the uncertainty, in the fog, in the beating heart before the candle closes. That's where your real psychology hides. And when you review later, do it like a scientist, not a storyteller. Don't ask, was this a good trade? Ask, did I follow my process? Was my reasoning aligned with my rules? Did emotion influence my timing? Detach from the outcome. The outcome is noise. The process is signal. The journal is not about judgment. It's about awareness. It's not about labeling yourself good or bad, right or wrong. It's about seeing clearly without distortion. The moment you judge, you close your eyes. The moment you justify, you step back into the illusion. But if you can look without needing to defend yourself, you begin to grow. That's when the journal becomes more than a tool. It becomes a teacher. It whispers lessons you couldn't hear before. Patterns emerge not in price action, but in thought patterns. You begin to see how often fear disguises itself as logic, how greed wears the mask of conviction, how certainty is just anxiety in a different costume. And with that awareness comes calm. You stop fighting the market. You start observing it. You stop chasing trades. You start understanding behavior, yours and everyone else's. This is why journaling matters more than any indicator, any system, or any secret strategy. Because the market is a reflection of human behavior, and you are part of that behavior. To know the market, you must know yourself. To master the chart, you must master your mind. The journal is the bridge between the two, between outer chaos and inner order, between the illusion of knowledge and the reality of awareness, between hindsight and true vision. So the next time you open your trading journal, don't look for proof that you were right. Look for evidence of how you thought, because the thought precedes the trade, and the trade merely reveals the thought. Your journal is not a list of trades. It's a map of consciousness. Follow it long enough and it will lead you not to profits first, but to clarity. And from clarity, all things profitable will eventually follow. The first step to breaking any illusion is awareness and hindsight bias. This quiet, persistent illusion is no different. You can't fight it by willpower. You can't outthink it, because the bias lives in the same place where thought itself begins. You can only see it, observe it, name it when it appears. And with that awareness, it begins to lose its grip. Every trader wants to evolve. They want to look at their past and extract wisdom. But the problem is most look back with the wrong eyes, the eyes of who they are now, not the eyes of who they were then. They forget the uncertainty, the confusion, the emotional storm that clouded their vision in that moment. So they judge, they rewrite, they say, I should have known better. But that sentence is poison, because the trader you are today did not exist back then. That version of you made the best decision they could with the information and awareness they had. The moment you condemn them, you deny your own evolution. Breaking the cycle means shifting how you review, not from a place of blame, but from a place of curiosity. Instead of, why did I do that, ask, what was I feeling when I did that? Instead of, how could I be so blind? Ask, what part of me needed to believe that story? At that time, curiosity opens the door. Judgment slams it shut. Every time you review your journal, you are standing at a crossroads between the past and the possibility of learning. Choose curiosity, and the path unfolds forward. Choose judgment, and you circle back again. To break the cycle, you must also change how you relate to uncertainty. Hindsight bias thrives on the illusion of clarity. It feeds on the comfort of should have. But the market is never clear. It was never supposed to be. If it were, there would be no edge, no risk, no growth. The fact that it feels uncertain is not a flaw. It's the design. When you accept that your need for hindsight begins to dissolve, you no longer need to be right, you only need to be present. You stop predicting and start observing. You stop judging and start recording. You stop rewriting the past and start meeting each moment with fresh eyes. There's a freedom in that, a quiet, steady kind of confidence that doesn't come from being certain, but from being aware. Because awareness is stronger than certainty. Certainty can be broken. Awareness adapts. Think of each trade as a mirror held up to the self. Every entry, every exit, every emotion, a reflection of the internal landscape you're still mapping. The more clearly you see that landscape, the less likely you are to stumble over it again. When you catch yourself thinking, I knew it, pause. Feel the subtle contraction in your chest. That's the ego tightening, trying to restore control. Breathe into it. Say to yourself, no, I didn't know. I thought I did. And that's okay. That small act of honesty is what turns hindsight into insight. Over time, the need to protect yourself fades. You begin to see the market not as a threat, but as feedback, not as chaos, but as communication. And when you reach that state, review becomes something beautiful, a conversation between who you were and who you're becoming. The journal transforms again. It's no longer about fixing yourself. It's about understanding yourself. And in understanding, you change naturally. You stop forcing progress. Progress starts unfolding on its own. The bias weakens. The illusion thins. The stories lose their power. And in that clarity, trading becomes less about prediction and more about presence. That's the moment hindsight turns into foresight. Not the kind that tells you what the market will do, but the kind that tells you what you will do and why. Mastery is not born from prediction. It is born from reflection, from the quiet repetition of seeing yourself clearly over and over again until illusion fades into understanding. Every great trader eventually learns this. The market is not a puzzle to be solved. It is a mirror to be observed. And the sharper your awareness, the clearer that reflection becomes. At first, you think mastery means control over the market, over entries and exits, over your results. But control is brittle. It cracks under pressure. It relies on certainty, and certainty is an illusion. Real mastery feels different. It feels like ease. It feels like stillness in motion. It feels like trust, not in the outcome, but in your ability to remain conscious within it. The reflective trader stops needing to be right. They stop seeking revenge. They stop needing validation from a green number on a screen because their measure of success has shifted. It's no longer, did I win? It's, did I stay aware? When awareness becomes your metric, everything changes. Losses become teachers. Wins become feedback. And every trade, no matter how small, becomes a step in the unfolding of self-mastery. This is the paradox of trading psychology. You cannot master the market without first mastering your relationship with uncertainty. And you cannot master uncertainty until you stop pretending that you knew all along. Awareness begins in humility. It grows through honesty, and it matures through repetition. Each review, each journal entry, each quiet evening spent looking back not to relive, but to observe. You start to notice patterns, the way fear whispers just before a breakout, the way greed speaks louder when you're right, the way boredom tempts you into trades that mean nothing. And with each observation, the distance between stimulus and reaction widens. You stop acting automatically. You start responding consciously. That is the birth of mastery, not in your results, but in your awareness of self. Because when you can see your own mind clearly, the market can no longer manipulate it. In time, you'll realize that the edge you were searching for was never in the charts, never in the indicators, never in the news or the strategy. It was in the space between thought and action, in the stillness between impulse and decision, in that breath, that pause, that moment of pure awareness. The hindsight bias loses its power there, because there you no longer need to be right. You only need to see. And when you see, you learn. When you learn, you evolve. And when you evolve, profit becomes a byproduct of perception. So let the journal become your teacher. Let reflection become your ritual. Sit with your trades not to judge, but to understand. Let each mistake reveal the truth you were too afraid to face. And let each truth set you free from the endless need to rewrite the past. Because the goal of trading psychology is not to eliminate emotion. It's to integrate it to feel fully but act consciously. To experience loss but not become it. To witness fear but not obey it. That is mastery. Not in being certain but in being present. Not in knowing but in seeing. And so the next time you look back at a chart and feel that familiar whisper, I knew it, smile, because now you truly do know. Not what the market would do, but what your mind tries to do to protect you from truth. You've seen through the illusion. You've stepped beyond the story. You've turned hindsight into insight and insight into wisdom. And in that wisdom, you find peace, the quiet confidence of a trader who no longer fights the market because they have stopped fighting themselves. That is the real profit. That is mind over markets. Maybe in the end, trading isn't about being right at all. Maybe it's about seeing clearly, about meeting each moment without the weight of the past or the need for certainty. The market will always move in ways you can't predict, but the real movement, the one that matters, is the movement within you. Each review, each reflection, each honest moment with your journal is a step toward mastery, not of price action, but of mind action. Because the greatest edge in trading is not information, it's awareness. It's the ability to look back without rewriting the past, to look forward without fearing what you'll find. So when you close this video, don't try to remember the quotes or the lessons. Remember the feeling, the stillness, the recognition that you don't need to know, you only need to see. That is where growth begins. That is where clarity lives. And that is where the trader becomes free. Thank you for watching. This is Mind Over Markets, where trading ends and understanding begins.